So you're about to graduate college. I am one of the usual hosts, Dave Hall, joined with Kelly Bailey. Kelly Bailey, how you doing today, Kelly?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So everyone, welcome. We have a very interesting show today. Please, in the comments, let us know where you're tuning in from. And as always, if you have any questions during today's show, put them there, and we will get to as many as we can. And you might be wondering, where's Patrick? Patrick's usually one of our co-hosts, but today he is special because he is actually a guest. So welcome, Patrick. Patrick has been helping with a project for some of the young professionals in our industry this summer, and we thought that today might be a good opportunity to kind of showcase what they've been working on. So Patrick, if you want to kind of explain a little bit better than me.
Yeah, it's happy to be here on the own show. And I'm in a hotel, so pardon me this appearance. It's not like my normal patio I'm on. My wife's back there working too. So yes, we did what happened is myself and Kyle Branch had a meet and greet in June, and he took me up on the opportunity to mentor him and a group of his friends, and for doing some sort of a portfolio project. And so one of the key things I wanted to say right off the bat, and we have a huge presentation to show everybody watching. It's going to be quite exciting. Is that some key recommendations out there for those of you that are doing portfolio projects is to make sure that you are solving a problem. So if you want to have a portfolio project, your main goal, generally speaking, for these professionals who they'll tell you a little bit more about their stories, but they were already out of college and they had already had a little bit of industry experience. So they wanted to have a portfolio piece that they could show, that was compelling. And honestly, we tried to do something that no one's ever really seen before, which is really exciting. I also wanted to be mindful of real world considerations, but also doing something that might be a little impossible today, but could be possible tomorrow. So those are some things that we look for, and we're going to get into many details, but why don't we bring on the rest of the gang and get going. Hey, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Yeah, this is definitely the most we've ever had on these tiles. So welcome.
Well,
thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, Kyle, go ahead. Kyle,
feeling great. Ready to party. Yeah, we can just go ahead and jump in. We're each gonna go ahead and introduce ourselves. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm gonna go first and just give a little bit of background about me. So, hi, my name is Kyle Branch. I'm a graphic designer. I'm originally from San Diego, and I'm currently based in Los Angeles. Thanks, Jojo. Hi. I graduated in 2019 from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo with a BFA in art and design, and I'm so excited to be here. I am one of those people who has always known they were interested in themed entertainment design. I attribute that at least in some part to my family. As you can see, we're the type of family that would take pictures in front of under construction attractions. So that tells you what type of family we were. So growing up, I was interested in the creation and development of new immersive experiences. That has always really interested me. So fast forward to 2014, I started attending Cal Poly and got involved in the Cal Poly Amusement Park Engineers and Designers Club, which is Cal Poly's TEA Next Gen affiliated club. And that was really where I found my people. And I really started to learn just how expansive this industry really is. So one of the first experiences I had within the industry was participating in the Disney College program. I worked at Animal Kingdom in Walt Disney World, first at Kilimanjaro Safaris, and then at Finding Nemo the Musical. And both were really amazing experiences. I learned a lot and loved every second. The following year, I had 2 internships, first at Daniels Woodland and second at Lexington, which is an offshoot of Nassau. And that was also a really interesting experience because I was working on a lot of projects beyond the traditional typical theme park. I was doing work for resorts and museums And so I really started to get this picture of like, wow, there's so much you can do within themed entertainment design. And then the following year, I had the opportunity to intern at Universal Creative, where I got to work on the Transformers Metro base land that will be opening at Universal Beijing next year. So that was awesome. Whoa, David, no way. That's so cool. We'll have to chat. That's awesome. So while I was interning at Universal Creative, I formed a team for the Imaginations competition with some of the other interns, a few of which you might see in this very live stream today. And long story short, we ended up getting to the finals and our team earned second place. And that was an incredible experience. And the following year, I graduated from Cal Poly and dove straight into an internship at Walt Disney Imagineering. I was interning with the graphics studio and I got to work on a lot of really cool stuff. And unfortunately, as we all know, the pandemic came around and cut my internship short, as I'm sure maybe some of you watching have also experienced, or you lost out on an internship. And, you know, it's a real bummer, but I've been trying to make the most of this time during quarantine. I've been doing a few things. I participated in the Themed Entertainment Creative Workshop Series first ever workshop, which was the Pitch Deck program, which was awesome. I also interned at Vizio, which is the TV company and soundbar company. Hey, Josh. I've also been doing a lot of really cool freelance work and just trying to keep busy and stay involved. So long story short, that's me in a nutshell. So great to be here. And I'm going to pass it on over to Susie.
Hi, I'm Susie. I'm an illustrator and designer in LA. I attended Art Center in Pasadena and studied illustration with a focus in entertainment arts at Art Center in Pasadena to go into animation as a visual development artist or a background painter. So during my graduating year, I had the wonderful chance to take part in the Imaginations competition. So for those still in school, I highly recommend entering the competition because it's a wonderful experience. Thanks to the competition, I got an opportunity to be in the themed entertainment industry. It was rare for an artist like me to experience the role that I was given, but it was fun and very unforgettable to be part of a team for an Animal Kingdom project, because that's where I met my wonderful boss and forever friend. That's us with her majestic horses, and got to connect with other professionals through our love for animals. We even brought in our pets to the office from time to time, like my hamster who walked around the cubicles and stole peanut butter at people's desks. And so the project I got to work on was Pandora, the World of Avatar. I was in the production design team where I got to see many of the design assets to be finalized. I worked on a lot of the weaving set designs that you see on trees, the queues, bridges, and in the merchandise and in the restaurant too. An awesome concept designer from the movie, she sent us her designs and I got to color design, organize and coordinate with others on how these were to be made, delivered, and installed. So while working at WDI full-time and finishing up school, I met so many talented and wonderful creatives. I connected with many people of different backgrounds and skill sets, learned a lot about the industry, and shared the experience with friends. It made me really, truly appreciate and understand and respect the whole process and production. And while I'm exploring and what to do next, I've been staying active by continuously creating and experimenting. I started making some of my illustrations into sculptures, play around in VR whenever I can, and thanks to my awesome friends who share their resources. So thanks for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy what we're going to be sharing with you.
Hey guys, my name is Mark. I'm a storyboard artist and concept designer based in Florida. I was born and raised in Singapore, where I grew up for most of my life. Growing up in Asia, I've been fortunate enough to travel and experience different cultures and theme parks around the world. I feel like this is the main reason why I pursued art as a career, visualizing a lot of these experiences through these art pieces. Being able to step inside a story and being immersed in a land that was carefully art directed has made me really build an eye for design and attention to details. I eventually enlisted in the military for 2 years before moving to Florida, where I attended Ringling College of Art and Design for computer animation, and where I fell in love with the art of storytelling. So that summer, I had the opportunity to put those storytelling skills to good use while interning at Disney TV, where I focused on storyboarding and creating compelling imagery like shows on DuckTales and Amphibia. And it was that summer I had a chance to connect with people across the street with some friends working in Imagineering. And those meetups really reminded me of why I got into art. So that summer, I kind of pivoted myself back to theme entertainment as a concept designer. And then that year, I shifted gears in building a portfolio that really exemplifies what I can offer as a concept designer. And it kind of paid off because next summer, I was awarded an internship to be at WDI as an intern on their R&D team. And it was a great learning experience and crash course on what theme park design could be and all the considerations we as artists have to make in the industry. I soaked it all in, and eventually I was given the opportunity to shift gears again and move to Florida to work at Disney Parks Live Entertainment on projects around Walt Disney World. And something I learned throughout my experience is the importance of always being willing to learn and keep an open mind, because you never know what opportunities might lie in the future. I'm always happy to connect, so please feel free to reach out after the show.
Hello, my name is Triet. That is the tree and then et. I'm a UX UI designer, and I'm also a producer. I currently live in Saigon, Vietnam. That's why it's dark outside. So my aha, I love theme park moment also kind of happened when I was seeing Mickey's PhilharMagic for the very first time. And specifically when Goofy's voice started to travel around the room as if he's like walking through the space. As a curious child, I was determined to, figure out like how that magic is made. And ultimately that led me to deciding to pursue a career in making people feel the same way that I felt when I was first captured by its special effects awesomeness. So for me, I love the process of conceiving the idea of a place that guests can escape to. I really enjoy coming up with ideas for theme park lands and attractions. And I was very lucky to have been able to do that with my internship at Universal Creative in 2018, where I got to work with the wonderful concept architecture and master planning team in creating the high-level planning and ideas for the projects. After that internship in Florida, I went back to California and pursued another internship in brand development with NBC Universal in Hollywood. This time, I got to use my graphic and visual storytelling skills to design the many merchandising guidelines for all of the Universal franchises, which was also really fun. And of course, when I was in California, I started a TA club at USC and was also visiting Disneyland religiously. As a theme park designer, I knew that I had to do the Disney Imagination competition. So when I was in school, I actually did the competition twice. And luckily, the second time, our team was lucky enough to make it to the finals. So for this competition, I really had to utilize both my art and semi-architecture background to help design some of the scenic elements and art for a project, which was absolutely fun to do. And then after that, I, of course, did a wonderful internship with Walt Disney Imagineering, working on the wonderful Galactic Star Cruiser project. So working with Disney, I had the best opportunity to speak with the people from many departments, who has definitely taught me to embrace my uniqueness and diverse background as a designer. And then 8 months ago, I started working for this lovely game company called Gameloft in Vietnam as an assistant producer for the company's concept team. In this new role, I get to work with many teams of artists, technicians, and even salespeople to conceive mobile games and apps for the different clients around the world. And I've been loving this opportunity so much because I get to be a part of the whole creative pipeline to ensure the projects that we make are the most impactful for the audience, while also staying in scope, obviously. And of course, getting to work with wonderfully kind and talented people also really helps a lot. And and I love working with cool people. And with that, I would like to extend my offer to everyone who's watching to reach out and connect. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'm excited for today's show.
All right, hi there, I'm Brooke, and I do production design and interior design. I'm originally from New Jersey, but now I live in Orlando, Florida. So my story in theme entertainment is a little different. So like a lot of people, I went to theme parks growing up, but my love of theme entertainment didn't really come from these experiences. It actually came from another source, More specifically, the first parts of the Caribbean movie. So one night, my mom and I rented it, and then I became obsessed. After memorizing not only the movie, but also all 3 commentary tracks, I started to explore the DVD bonus features. And one of the bonus features was a compilation from The Wonderful World of Color, where Walt walked through Imagineering and looked at the development of the Pirates ride. And this is where I really fell in love with theme park design, because it was the first time I got a peek behind the curtain. And that's really where the magic is for me. Like, to see how cutting edge technology and storytelling can work together to create these amazing spaces is so incredible and compelling to me. So now that I knew that what I wanted to do, I needed to find a way to get there. So I decided to go to art school, and while there, I found my love of production design. I love spaces that tell a story and find that idea incredibly fascinating. After graduating undergrad, I felt that I wanted a set of more technical skills because as a person, I'm very technical and detail-oriented. So I went to grad school for interior design to learn more about the logistical side of design. On the left side of this slide are some images from my thesis, where I made an MMORPG hotel. So I took the game mechanics found in games like World of Warcraft and applied that to a themed hotel setting. So that means that it's a hotel where you can explore and play as a character in your own spy story. And that was a lot of fun to work on. While in grad school, I also had the amazing opportunity to intern for Universal Creative over 2 summers for the concept architecture and master planning team. And here I met some of my best friends in the entire world and was able to work on some incredible projects, and I made some great connections in the industry. It was also a really great experience for me because I was able to see theme entertainment design from the inside, because it's really different being a fan of theme entertainment and looking in versus understanding the design decisions from the outside. Also, while I was in grad school, I formed an Imaginations team with former Universal interns. 2 of them are on this call. And it was a great learning experience for me, especially when it came to communication, because we were from 4 different schools and 2 different time zones. And even though this kind of communication has become a new normal, I'm really glad that as a group, we've kind of had a practice run. For this project, I was able to work on the hotel room design and the master plan for a resort. And also from this project, I was lucky enough to secure an internship with Walt Disney Imagineering in Anaheim. So I worked at WDI Anaheim for 3 months, and there I was able to work with amazing people on projects all across the Disneyland resort. And after that, I was able to come down here to WDI in Florida and work on a new resort, which was such a cool experience because I feel like I could really combine both my backgrounds of interior design and production design to help with a really awesome project for 8 months. And that's my story. Nice to meet you all. And again, feel free to reach out to me with any questions at all.
Hey everybody, I'm Patrick. For those of you that don't know me, I'm going to give the very abridged version of who I am. But also, Brooke, giving you time. Can you log in and log back out? We had some audio issues with you. Cool. All right. So I'm going to start my story when I first moved to Orlando in 2013. So I obviously, I'm seeing their stories, all their family pictures of Disneyland. I don't have a lot of family pictures of Disneyland because we didn't really have like cell phones and things to take it, and they're all lost. But I would have several photos of my childhood being there at Disney if I didn't, because I was just like these guys. I shared the very similar love for it. So I moved to Orlando and went to TEA networking events, Slice Creative networking events, and landed a job at Give Kids the World actually for about a month and a half, which was fantastic. Great organization. And then I landed a job at Nickelodeon. And I just want to say, like, my love for Give Kids the World. Go ahead and go back a second, Kyle. My love for Give Kids the World is always there. And in fact, on the right-hand side is a picture of members of the Nickelodeon team decorating the village, one of the village house, which is really fantastic. And we do it every Christmas. We may not do it this Christmas because we know how things are going, but it's really fun. We have a Paw Patrol one and a SpongeBob one. So that's beside the point. So I got a job at Nickelodeon as a project coordinator, and this is me holding a really small popcorn bucket. Yes, I've been slimed. It was absolutely incredible. And there I was a project coordinator and did all sorts of fun projects. And then go ahead to the next slide. And of course, opened up a THEA award-winning attraction as a project coordinator. That's my wife there, and then of course Patrick Starr is there as well. I'm on the far left of the image, and it was absolutely a fun project and an amazing project. Like I said, a THEA award-winning project. But the day came where I actually left Nickelodeon. Over there, you can see that's actually the original Double Dare podium. We actually have it in an undisclosed location But that is the original Double Dare podium, which is fantastic. And I left Nickelodeon. I believe this is the next slide we'll show. Yeah, to work with SeaWorld. So worked with Brian Morrow's team at SeaWorld for a little bit. Worked on some great games in the Cobra's Curse attraction. We renovated all these games, and I was a creative lead for those projects. And a lot of other things, but this was one that I did from concept to opening, which is really, really fun. And then all my projects wrapped up, and I actually co-wrote a book while I was kind of underemployed. And then I eventually landed a job at iTech Entertainment here at iTech Entertainment, which is a great company. And I worked as a project coordinator again, doing creative writing and associate producing and things like that. Go ahead and skip to the next page. Then I came back to Nickelodeon to be the associate art director for the American Dream New Jersey project for Nickelodeon Universe. So I came in around 2 years ago. We were about 50% through schematic design, and I came in as the art director for it, which is an incredible experience. And I've been there ever since. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So we even came up with, we have a captain's log there. We got all sorts of fun photo ops throughout it. It's really fantastic. And now I do creative writing, story development, art direction for Nickelodeon experiences around the world. And as everyone knows, or many people know, I'm obsessed with helping people out. So whether you're students, veterans, anybody, I'm always willing to connect and chat and help the next generation, or my peers, anybody really. So this is me taking a nap after a long day on the job site, and then on the left we have a really great photo opportunity at the entrance, which is kids can play all over that slime. It's completely safe for that, which is fantastic. Cool. Well, what do we have? Is that the last slide, I think, for me? Yes. I'll throw it back to the project team. I just want to say that I'm really proud of these guys, and this is a really incredible. I don't want to sell it too much. You're about to see it, but as you can see, they're really well put together and very thoughtful, and you're going to see it. Hold on to your hats now, okay? And hold on to your seats.
Would you like us to dive straight into our presentation, Patrick? Okay. All right. So we have created a project that we call Elemental Dash Quest for the Blue Moon. Essentially, as Patrick mentioned earlier on, we had a chat and he offered to put on some sort of project challenge for myself and a small group of people that I got together. And we, thanks Sabrina, we basically got together and we started out with the goal of creating some sort of portfolio piece that would push boundaries within theme parks and find the next level of immersion for the modern theme park audience. So as we dive in, we're going to be talking a little bit about our journey in our development, and then a specific example that kind of exemplifies the concept that we came up with. So first of all, we're just quickly going to go ahead and introduce ourselves again in case anyone's joining us late. So hi, everyone. I'm Kyle Branch. I'm a graphic designer currently based in LA.
Hi again. I'm Susie. I'm an illustrator also based in LA.
Hi, my name is Mark. I'm a concept designer based in Orlando.
Hello, my name is Triet, and I'm a UX UI designer, and I'm currently based in Saigon, Vietnam.
And then hi, I'm Brooke Pandos. I'm a production designer and interior designer based in Orlando.
Okay, so our journey started when we took a look at how we could improve some theme park pet peeves for modern guests. We wanted to design a project that can help solve the areas in modern theme parks that can be maximized, turning pauses into moments that entertain these guests. We wanted those spaces to have elements of a great attraction, designs that invite you to play, stories that let you choose, and surprises that entertain you and happen because of you. We also looked at trends that are popular among modern guests, especially millennials, and how they interact with each other in person, online, and through customizable profiles. One of the things we found is that the modern day theme park audience has matured. Aside from the typical nuclear family, we're seeing people making trips with their chosen family. Theme parks are not just for kids anymore, but rather young adults and pass holders who visit the parks to hang out with friends for a few hours, or even participate in seasonal additions and entertainment as a weekend or an after-work activity. These are the childless millennials, people within the age of 20 to 35. What started as a Facebook rant criticizing this group of people has turned into a title that many of us in the theme park community wear proudly. These people visit the theme parks occasionally for a short amount of time to hang out with their friends. And this is the audience we want to design for. All of us here consider ourselves to be childless millennials, so we can probably say we know the demographic pretty well. And so with that in mind, we've designed a guest experience that extends beyond the park, adaptable to each guest, and is also scalable to fit in with existing parks with many rollout phases. And of course, besides engaging our target audience, which is the childless millennials, we believe we've also designed an experience that appeals to audience of all ages, both for families and for chosen families.
So in order to exemplify what all of these components that we're talking about coming together would look like, we've designed an attraction that we call Elemental Dash, Quest for the Blue Moon. And the version you see developed here is envisioned as an elaborate e-ticket attraction that would go into a major theme park. So in our story, legend tells of a giant tree that contains the true essence of nature's 4 elements: water, fire, earth, and air, which are embodied by 4 animal spirits. One day, this massive tree falls, revealing an entry portal at its base that allows humans to go inside the tree and form their own special connections with the spirits. Inside the tree, local villagers have built up a festival center to celebrate the spirits, and many of the spirits have actually developed an affinity for humans. They allow us to keep them as pets, and they team up with us to help them train to become more skilled at mastering their element. Today, all of the spirits are coming together to participate in a race that puts their powers to the test. The guests are invited to enter the tree and help the animals train and join them as they follow the blue moon through the forest and to the finish line.
And now we meet the elemental creatures. Guests will have the opportunity to adopt one of our elemental animals: a water otter, fire snake, earth fox, and an air owl. These are the spirits that will accompany guests throughout the experience. By letting guests have these animals as virtual pets, we hope to let them build a connection with these friends before and after the in-park experience, and see their very own pet be the star of the attraction. The guest experience starts at home, where guests can play with our Experiences app on their mobile devices. Here, they will be introduced to the attraction story, befriend their first elemental pet, customize the pet's appearance for guests to differentiate their own pet throughout the entire experience, feed, groom, and train them through various mini games. They can even take the pets out for a jog by connecting it to their fitness app. All these grinding components will pay off as perks to the guest in-park experience, and the native features make the app work at home even without connection to Wi-Fi. When guests get to the park, the journey starts even before they enter the attraction's show building. While they wait in the virtual queue, guests can be entertained at various locations throughout the park, which have been activated with story elements such as dead zones, retail stores, and restaurants. At these spaces, guests can play with their animal friends by triggering small effects. These are moments that will make the guests feel like their extra efforts are being rewarded and drive up the attendance for these locations. If you're lucky, you might even unlock new accessories or powers for your pets. When it's time for guests to enter the show building, they will receive a notification telling them it's time to enter the tree. And once they arrive at the attraction, the true adventure begins. As soon as the guests step into the queue space, the app interface switches to a night mode so as to not to interfere with the show lighting.
So here's an image of what a typical queue feels like, right? It's a boring layout of switchbacks, and it usually leads to guests making their own entertainment in line, like playing heads up with friends or spending time on social media. And even highly themed attractions like Rise the Resistance and Flight of Passage use this linear queue structure. So even though there's a lot to look at the first time you go through, by the 3rd or 4th time you're waiting in line, you're back to looking at your smartphone. Our queue is different. Instead of a linear queue experience, we've designed a fully non-linear queue environment, and that allows for guests to have agency in choosing how they spend their time waiting. Guests will always find something new to uncover as they engage and explore within their surroundings. As soon as guests enter the attraction, they're met with what we call the story pre-show. And here's where a village elder tells a tale about the 4 elements and how 4 special animals learn to harness each element's power. Today, it's possible to befriend these animals and train them to compete in a race to the blue moon, which lies on the horizon beyond the forest. After the pre-show, guests traverse through caverns and are met with a stunning view of the heart of this tree. In the center is a pseudo-Olympic torch with all 4 elements represented. Beyond the center space are meandering caverns concealing a bar, quick service restaurant, marketplace, interactive zones, and 4 elemental lounges, 1 for each element. Some of these spaces are secretive, like a hidden speakeasy, and are just waiting for you to discover them. The most exciting aspect about our queue is however you choose to spend your time, you're rewarded on the final attraction or it impacts your story. Operationally, a really unique aspect of our queue is unlike other attractions, here you enter through the gift shop. We have created a captive audience that in order to wait in line can spend money on dining or retail. And while this definitely makes sense and makes money for the park, imagine it from the guest point of view. Now when waiting for the brand new e-ticket, instead of standing in a stressful line for 3+ hours, you could have a beer, browse shops, or even just sit in a really awesome space and relax. An example of this is say you buy a drink at the bar. You have the ability to then scan the in on your smartphone and your pet gets a little treat too. This improves their performance in the final attraction. Another really exciting aspect of our queue are the elemental lounges, and here's where you get to train your pet and gain points towards the ride. There's 1 lounge per element. Earth is a beautiful crystal cavern, the air lounge is an awesome hangar bay, the fire lounge is at the edge of a volcano, and the water lounge is an overflowing aquatica. In these lounges, guests play mini games to train their pet, and these mini games blend the scenic elements, the guest smartphones, and projections into a truly unforgettable experience. Something really important to note here is that our goal is to encourage guests to interact with the people and environments around them. So even though these activities are activated through phones, guests won't have their heads buried in their phones the whole time, but rather using them as a tool to engage. Some examples of these mini games include stacking rock towers in the Earth Lounge to build stamina, or a match 3 game with shooting fire orbs in the Fire Lounge to increase your pet's attack. And maybe you got the new high score or earn enough prestige, then you can unlock one of 2 secret VIP training rooms located in each lounge.
Like any epic story, the journey of our main ride unfolds in 3 acts. Before guests board their moon raft, which we envision as a trackless ride system, they'll scan their phones, linking the elemental pets with their ride vehicles. In this scenario, there are 2 story paths, but in reality, we envision this being hundreds of unique story paths based on how the guests have chosen to experience the attraction up to this point. So this could be at home, throughout the park, in the queue space. The guests have trained hard, and their ride experience is their opportunity to watch their efforts play out and pay off. So with their phones tucked away, they set off on their race. 2 vehicles will dispatch and race each other throughout the journey. In the first act, our quest begins as the guests set off with the animals into the woods, using the blue moon to navigate through the terrains. Guests find themselves in a raging river where here, the otters part the water, the snakes light the way, and the fox moves the rocks to tame the current. And the owl stores up a breeze to blow us back on track. The ride experience is unique to each guest as their specific customized pet is integrated into the environments through projections, holographic technology, all integrated into the show set as well. From this first scene, the story branches off into 2 different paths, a winner and a loser, based on which vehicle has the highest score. At the end of this rushing river scene, 1 vehicle gets knocked off track into a rough patch of rapids, while the other enjoys a brief pause as the current eases and the elemental pets celebrate around them. The racing vehicles meet back up as they flow into a beautiful cave glowing with bioluminescent vegetation. For a moment, things are peaceful, but suddenly a large, black, bug-like creature with glowing red eye appears. It's a lava beast. The spirits must again spring into action in order to fend off the monster, and this round's winning vehicle stuns the monster to speed into the next scene, while the losing vehicles held back for a few moments, stuck in the beast's grasp until finally being able to break loose and move on. The guests speed out of the cave and discover they've been inside the base of an erupting volcano. Lava pours out all around them and debris falls from the sky. On the horizon, we see it, the blue moon. With the volcanic eruption causing chaos all around us, the guests must dash towards the finish line as quickly as possible. The spirits use their power to combat the danger, shield the guests, and propel the vehicles forward. It's a neck and neck, but ultimately 1 vehicle makes it out victorious. The ride concludes in a celebration as the pets and moon rafts dance in joy and beautiful lights, and as guests disembark, they receive a notification on the app with a reward for their hard work, along with an invitation to keep training and return next time. The idea of creating multiple story paths on a single ride experience has been a tough thing for theme parks to execute in the past, but we believe that in this model, we could deliver on it effectively. By pushing the interactive gameplay to the pre-ride experience, the story branching is pre-programmed into the ride vehicles when the ride begins, so there's no need for guests to take any action during the ride itself.
So at a glance, the attraction might look like a very intricate system, but it's actually quite simple. The experience starts before you arrive, entertains while you wait, pays off on the main ride, and rewards you for your commitment after. These pillars can also be executed on a much simpler budget. With the app, the interactive story and features can function on guest phones without a big show building. Plus, park operators may also benefit from the data of user behavior collected from people using the app. We can collect heat maps of where guests like to hang out the most in the park, or where they like to spend the most time, or even which food or drinks are more popular. We can also respond to crowds in the park in real time, such as activating exclusive features on rainy days to pull more guests into the parks. When we first started out developing this project, we thought it may be a little too much of a reach to implement these ideas into a smaller and regional park. But in our research, we discovered that regional parks have already started to explore the creation of experiences that are not too different from what we're describing here. Knott's Berry Farm has had huge successes in their highly interactive Ghost Town Alive experience, which gives the guests the choice to dive deeper into its story world through playing with live actors. Meanwhile, the Battle for Cedar Point is an example of an app-based theme park experience that allows the guests to customize their journey and build a personal connection with the parks and other guests. So as these examples have proven, the experience doesn't have to be tied to a single attraction. It can sprawl throughout the park. Activities can take place at various retail and dining locations throughout a park where people can hang out, socialize, and even make transactions. These activities could even involve interacting with employees and cast members to perform tasks to unlock new items. If the parks do want to design this attraction around a ride, the experience could manifest itself through any number of different ride systems. It can be a coaster, a theater show, any sort of ride vehicle here would be adaptable and obviously possible. Regardless, the app would reward the guests after they ride for their commitment, thus completing the user loop. The experience doesn't even have to take place in a theme park. We see opportunities to activate this type of experience at cruise ships and resorts, families, entertainment centers as well, or even national parks if they're looking for ways to increase education and engagement with nature. The possibilities to adapt this structure and theme to any existing IP out there is also very easy. We're sure you can already think of possible IPs this can be easily adapted to. And the experience can even be a standalone attraction even. The great thing about this concept is that it is highly profitable in the long term as well. As we build the personal connections between the guests and their personal pets, we can also roll out multiple expansion packs throughout the years, such as Halloween or Christmas accessories for the pets, new games, and so much more. My personal favorite is when new merchandise is released and I can buy and digitize it so that my pet and I can be both wearing the same scarf.
So in short, whether this would be the first time you're visiting the attraction or the 100th, this experience would completely maximize engagement. The guests would get to start their journey at home and continue it at home between visits. They would get to choose what they want to do while they wait. They would become fully immersed in the story while they wait instead of the story only taking place on the actual ride itself. They would get to impact the way the ride plays out, and they would be rewarded for their engagement inside and outside the park. This also makes a lot of sense from the park's perspective as well. The parks would be able to combine retail, dining, and interactive gameplay to provide guests with more entertainment while they wait, and the captive audience would likely result in a boost in sales. The parks would also be able to process more capacity while the guests wait to ride. Underutilized areas around a park would be activated through this experience. Guest satisfaction would rise as the traditional unpleasant queuing experience, which is often a major complaint of park guests, is replaced with this more interactive and immersive experience. And branching off of that, the repeatability of this experience would result in stronger guest loyalty as guests visit the park in order to level up their pets again and again. We really see this type of experience as an incredible opportunity for customer relationship management. As the experience is app-driven, parks would be able to track guest patterns and use that information in a variety of ways. For example, they could send out push notifications to guest phones throughout the day to drive the guests to certain parts of the park in order to improve overall circulation. And that's just one of many examples we could think of. We really see a lot of potential in this experience, regardless of whether it be implemented in a Disney or Universal level theme park, or a smaller regional park, or even someplace other than a theme park. We believe this experience would be appealing to all ages, but especially that childless millennial demographic who often only visit the parks for a few hours at a time and have a very specific goal in mind when they visit. Ultimately, we believe this experience is worth exploring because it pays off from so many different angles. It pays off from a guest experience perspective, an operations perspective, a creative storytelling perspective, and depending on how it's executed, it can also be quite affordable. That's all we have. Thank you all so much for your time, and we look forward to hearing your feedback and answering any questions you might have.
All right. Wow. There it is. I'm just throwing up some comments.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to give everyone in the comment section a shout out so bad as I was as I was like doing the presentation. I was like, oh my God, hello friends. Everyone is here.
It's cool.
Well, I'm really glad that we got the opportunity to see your guys' project. And I think one of the coolest things is you guys were able to organize this kind of during a pandemic. And, you know, while a lot of people have been, you know, missing their summer internships and, you know, opportunities. So I think it'd be really valuable for our audience to kind of discuss how you guys went about doing that, because you know, if we can use you as an example to have other groups create similar things, I think, you know, our industry is going to be even more amazing and give more people opportunity to build their portfolios and see some really cool stuff. So I think that's the next section we want to talk about is kind of your process.
All right.
Great.
Yeah, we'd be happy to talk about that. And I just really quickly wanted to shout out all the amazing projects that other people have been taking on. Like the STEP program has been so cool, and the TEC Creative Workshop Series has also been so amazing, and I'm so excited to see that grow as well. So there are already some opportunities out there, and as you can see, like, it doesn't even have to be one of those. It could be something just with this, you know, with a group of friends or a group of colleagues. But yeah, we would love to talk a little bit about our development process, just so you guys maybe can be inspired or learn from how we went about this. So essentially, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we formed our team. This project, for those of you who maybe weren't tuned in at the very beginning, this project started when Patrick and I had a meet and greet call, and Patrick was kind enough to offer to mentor a group project if I wanted to get a group of people together. So I took him up on that and formed this small group. And I reached out to these folks here because I knew that they would each bring their own unique backgrounds and skill sets in order to create a project that was truly greater than the sum of its parts. What we created is certainly beyond what any of us individually could have contributed. Aside from doing graphic design, I also acted as the project coordinator. I made sure things ran smoothly within our group and in planning things with Patrick. I highly encourage everyone, if you go about doing a project like this, someone needs to take on that responsibility because there is a ton of planning that goes into it. One major aspect of this, of course, was coordinating schedules. We used the website When Is Good to easily figure out what times would work for everyone to meet up and collaborate. Those are the screenshots you see on the top right. Obviously, this sometimes proved tricky with some of us being on the West Coast, some on the East Coast, and one in Vietnam, but we were able to make it work through the magic of technology. In terms of organization, it was a pretty simple week-to-week folder system in Google Drive that seemed to work for us, but I'm sure you just have to kind of figure out what works for your team. And one thing I wanted to throw out there is it was really important to me that this project was really worthwhile for everyone involved. That meant finding opportunities for each person to showcase their unique skills. Sometimes it's hard to focus on anything but the work that you yourself are contributing to a project, but being able to keep tabs on how the project comes together as a whole is really crucial.
So we started the project by asking ourselves, like, how do we experience the park? Why do we go? We all have a variety of reasons going to theme parks. Some go very often with friends. Some may go only like once in a lifetime. But the main reason we all go is to have a shared and fun experience. But of course, it's not all fun. Some issues are inherent and may ruin certain experiences, so we wanted to address them. Some of the main issues we'd like to fix were queues, long lines due to the overcrowding and not having much to do in lines, and also the increase in tickets cost, evolving guest expectations, the challenge of mobile devices, dead zones, and the increase in competition. We also researched into industry trends such as interactive queues, virtual queues, consequential moments, scavenger hunts, themed bars, interactive and immersive installations. We want to address these concerns and design a solution that works, not make something that's just pretty with cool effects, but beyond a compelling portfolio piece, but something with substance. And for our love and excitement of the entertainment to be reflected into our work.
So now that we collected a broad variety of research, our next task was to select a specific area of focus for our project. This allowed us to establish a clear who, what, where, when, and why. And from here, we took those core ideas and wrote them out into a document we called the executive summary. This clearly and thoroughly defined our goals and outcomes for the project. It acted as a foundation so we could always refer back to it and make sure all the decisions we made were enforcing our core mission. It was extremely helpful because in doing this, it really helped us understand how we could make our project stand out. Also, having this information in front of us helped us identify the strengths of our idea, which was to offer a solution to the theme parks from an operations point of view instead of being IP-driven. After that, we started to map out what the guest journey throughout this attraction might be through these flowchart diagrams, and we tried our best to picture what these key components would need to be at each stage of the guest experience while keeping the executive summary in mind as well.
So we had an idea for what we wanted to accomplish and how, but now we needed a theme to really tie everything together. We started by analyzing current attractions that are already out there, and by finding 3 categories that most of these attractions could fit into. We called these categories attraction styles, and by finding these styles, our hope was to then apply them to our idea to see what our final attraction might be. The 3 styles are first the leisure style, so these are really calming and peaceful rides. The discovery style, which is more about understanding the world of the attraction or our own world. And then finally, the combat style, which is about challenging opponents and finding a victor. We landed on using a combat style attraction because we thought that would lead to a really exciting attraction for our portfolio. And if you'd like to hear more about any of our ideas for the other styles, feel free to ask us.
So with the combat style, we really saw the potential of the guests taking ownership of the teams that they choose, and also how their commitment to training could really pay off and influence the show. We were really inspired by the success of Tamagotchis, Pokemon Go, and Animal Crossing. These are extremely popular case studies of the potential success of digital pets, and more specifically, their appeal to our target audience, which is the childless millennials. And also with the popularity of social media these days, it only made sense that we create the spaces for our guests to really customize their own profiles and then share that to a bigger audience.
So that was a glimpse into kind of our development process. We also thought it might be helpful for you to see some of our individual development process for some of the specific components that we contributed to the project. So of course, I worked on the graphics for this project. There may be some graphics here on the screen that you don't really recognize from our presentation, but I promise you they were all there in some form or fashion. But that's because a lot of my work was integrated as components of other people's designs. And basically, I created a toolkit with which the others could develop their pieces in order to make things more cohesive. And in some cases, I was also inspired by the pieces the others had created. So it was a very cyclical process. One thing I did take full ownership of was the logo that you saw. So I will talk a little bit specifically about that logo. It took a lot of development, a lot of iteration to get to the final version. I started with some hand sketches, really just playing with different styles, trying to capture the overall like energy and spirit of the attraction that we wanted to convey. And of course, then I started to go digital, and I did a lot of explorations with different fonts. And even once I had honed in on the typography, I still went through a ton of iterations to figure out the overall layout and composition of the logo. What should it look like as an entire piece? So I did a ton of really quick explorations until I figured out what direction I wanted to go to. Of course, checking with the team, getting a lot of great feedback. And then even once that was locked in, there was still a lot of exploration in terms of the color palette. So again, it just came back to what conveys the mood of our attraction best, and what just looks the best. You know, sometimes it's also just kind of a feeling. So tons of iteration was necessary, but you can see on the left the final version.
So as a concept designer and storyboard artist, my role is to visualize our ideas in appealing imagery, both sequentially and to stand on its own. For the storyboards, me and the team started out with a document of all the story beats in this experience. And from here, we really curated on what we wanted to show and narrowed it down further till we had about 20 storyboards. In terms of execution, there was a lot of exploration of what camera angles would best help tell each story beat. I started out loose but clear on the left with my sketch, and once I got the bio from the team, I moved on to the cleanup and eventually added some tone or even color to highlight certain portions of the shot, such as interactive elements or even the characters. With the concept art, it's very similar to my storyboards. I roughed in a sketch of what I'm thinking of, got some notes from the team, and then started to tie down the piece. This can be done either in Photoshop or a 3D program such as Maya. 3D can help you immensely, just exploring different color options, camera layouts. For this example, I worked with Brooke, who did the layout to give me a head start with the piece. And then from here, added my lighting choices in 3D again, and then through some rough texturing, and then finishing it up in Photoshop.
And with our entrance concept art, I had the opportunity to collaborate with Mark on where we had back and forth with notes for each other. So Mark started out with the sketch, and then I went in to make the black and white value refs to see how it may be lighted. And then we moved on to a first pass of a color rough to get the basic color, lighting, and mood. And then soon Mark took over to add some tweaks and the final lighting adjustments, and also throwing in Kyle's animal spirit banners. So these were the animals we want to represent for each element. We picked these creatures because we wanted them to appear ethereal but approachable. We also want them to have enough fantasy detail to make them look magical, but something that is neither intimidating nor juvenile. I explored with various poses of the animals to show how adorable and active they can be while interacting on the ride, in the venue, and on the app. Lastly, I made color roughs and pattern ideas based on their element and to suggest the creatures are more than just normal animals. Each animal has their unique patterns that relate to their element in a graphic way. So not only designing these creatures individually was a challenge, but they needed to look consistent next to one another so that they look like they're not, they look like they're from the same world. So I had to consider their shape language, the final patterns, and the colors to be harmonious.
So as a team, we knew we wanted to have the mobile experience kind of be the place where these digital animals can live, so people can build an emotional connection with them through interactions. So for me, when I first started, I had to ask myself questions like, what would I want to do if I had these magical Tamagotchis on my phone? Do I want to feed it, bathe it, play with it, jog with it? All these kinds of things. And from there, I tried to find the appropriate but also engaging gameplays for the audience to train their animals with at home and in the queue. So one of the things to keep in mind during this process was that these games had to have high repeatability, because the guests are going to have to want to play them over and over again. And that's when I turned to endless and hyper casual gameplays, because those games never end. Because the goal is to always beat yourself the last time you played. And once I had that information, I then started to think of ways to connect them in a flow that is intuitive. What's interesting about UX and UI design is that you really need to understand people, right? So the main challenge for me was to create an interface that is extremely understandable, because I won't be with each guest kind of explaining to them what each button does. So for example, I had to survey our teams over and over again about the design of our buttons, and also the bars showing all of the guests' progress and their animals. Because literally like one shape, one color, one gradient could change the entire meaning of a button, which could be, tapping, holding, scrolling, and swiping, and so much more. And we actually did that a lot and so many times. This is only a tiny fraction of the screenshots and notes that I received from our critique sessions. But what I'm really grateful for is actually how collaborative our team was, which is exactly what a UX and UI designer needs, because I definitely cannot do my job alone, not without playtesting, right? So this team really helped me kind of put the user part into the UX and UI design. So I'm very grateful for that.
So as a team, we decided that a really important part of telling our story is to have a rendering of the main atrium space in the queue. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the process of making this piece. The first step in a rendering is to make a white model, and here really focus on composition. The idea was to highlight the torch in the center, so the composition here reflects that. The next step is to add materials, and really don't be afraid to edit the textures in Photoshop to better fit your scene. Something that I think makes a really huge impact is adding a bump to your materials, and that really gives the surfaces more dimension. Here I also like to add lighting within Revit, and it really dictates the mood of the scene. It's supposed to be a mysterious and calm place. So for the most part, the lighting is very warm, with just the cool moonlight shining from the top to really contrast and highlight, again, the center torch. Something else that I like to do around this step is to add in little standees for people as a 2-scale template for adding figures to the final rendering. Finally, I photoshopped in some finer details like glowing markings on the walls, which correspond to each elemental lounge. I filled the stalls with merch, and I added a few details to the torch. I also added colored lights in response to critique on the piece. So that's really about understanding and incorporating constructive criticism and how really important that is. One of the last elements here is adding the figures and blending them into the scene by adjusting their hue, saturation, and brightness. And it's extremely, extremely, extremely important at this step to paint in highlights and shadows on your figures, and to also paint shadows underneath your figures to have them really blend into the scene. Like a lot of artwork in our presentation, this was also a collaborative piece. So the banners and stall signs here were designed by Kyle, and these were added to the scene to add a little life and color to the rendering. And it was really important to me to make sure that while fitting into the scene, the signs also look their best to show off his work.
And I really appreciate that, Brooke. Thank you so much. It looks amazing. We are about to actually hand it over to Patrick for a bit, and he's going to be talking a little bit about his role as a mentor. But first, we wanted to kind of mention, from our point of view, some of the main things that Patrick contributed to this project. The first thing is he essentially acted as the guardrails for our project at every stage. He set up parameters, and he got us thinking about the right things at the right times in order to make sure our project was on track. One of the things we're most grateful for is the fact that each week, aside from meeting us individually to meet or to discuss the project, he also set up meet and greets with industry professionals. So we got to meet so many great people, and some of us gave us early critiques for our in-progress presentation to help it make it even stronger. That was so invaluable, and we're so grateful for that. Patrick also provided design feedback on our artwork throughout the project. And he also just really pushed us to put our best work forward and best ideas forward. And he helped us realize that not every idea can be the idea. So he helped guide us in that way as well. And with that, I'm going to throw it over to Patrick so he can talk about how to mentor.
Hey, thank you. Great. I mean, obviously, this was great. Every breakdown you have is fantastic. For those of you that have questions, feel free to keep coming them in. We'll get to those in a moment. We're just kind of running through here, and but we appreciate all your feedback. I want to just give a shout out. You know, Kyle, you mentioned it, that we had industry veterans do meet and greets, and then slowly, as you guys started having a presentation to pitch, we had very specific feedback from great people. So I want to actually name them. And big thank you to Brian Morrow, Dave Cobb, Darren Ulmer, Chuck Fawcett, Alex Graham, Wyatt Winter, Casey Collins, Alexis Cummins, Lisa Nash, Michael Libby, and Jeff Davis, all who met with everybody. So that was, and there's actually more people lined up, but it was absolutely fantastic when we do that. And I think what I want to start off with is just saying how important it is for people to have exposure to other people in the industry. Say hi to my wife, by the way, she's over here. She can't hear you. Yeah, I have headphones on. When I talked to them, I said, hey, what kind of people do you want to meet? And we had quite an array of people from different companies. We had people that were on the operations side, which is critical, although I know some of you had worked in the parks themselves. But we had, coordinators, art directors, producers, and then all the way to, principals of companies, which was really fantastic to do that, to do it. And if you have 6 people that are already kind of lined up, it's actually pretty effective to do a one-on 6 meet and greet. I think that was very valuable, and it's also very respectful of the person's time. So let's go ahead and put that slide back up, and I'm talking to myself because I clicked it. Okay, so Kyle mentioned earlier about ensure there's enough people on the team to create something. And so you need to have somebody that's acting as a producer or coordinator, as Kyle dubbed himself. You make sure you have concept artists, illustrators. We had user experience designer, and of course, we had several people that provided graphics and then the artistic work. So you kind of need to have an understanding of what it is that the mission is of this project, and to make sure that there's somebody there to deliver it, right? So let me see, beyond what a traditional team might have. Yeah, so one other thing I would suggest is when we had a specifically Triet in the team, we knew that there was going to be some sort of interactive component to this. And we didn't even know what it was yet, and I kind of forget all my little points here, but we didn't know what the project was yet, but we did have that unique perspective in. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Let me see what else we have. We're keeping things on yeah. So what I have found is that even though, these people, these wonderful professionals had experience all over the place at brand companies, great experiences. The idea of putting a concept deck together or a concept pitch together is still foreign, and it's also challenging. It's challenging to get the rhythm right. And so, every week we would have discussions, and I'd say, okay, where are you guys wanting to go next? And then I would try to give very clear deliverables, because they may not know what that even looks like. What are the process steps? And I'll just say that, the biggest key is and as you can see from the presentation, is that we spent probably a month and a half just talking about research and analyzing. We knew we were childless millennials, as I am also one. That's how it started off. What is that specific thing that we bring to the table that might be interesting? And they brought all sorts of outside research in, and we had these discussions that were like, well, this is an interesting thing. This is an interesting thing. Let's combine that with that, and combine outside trends and theme park trends, and see if we can come with it. And so we started without even having a storyline, of just figuring out what problems we wanted to solve, which is why I think this is such a compelling portfolio piece to begin with. So to do that, I was giving out very clear assignments to help keep things on track, and they listened to it. I really appreciate that. So what's the next slide? Every comment may be about making for a better. So I tried my best. We had early discussions about what were they trying to experience, and every single one of them said, we want to have an amazing portfolio piece that can help land a job. That was a very specific assignment. And I hope that they would agree that every single comment I had was geared towards that, whether it came down to the storyline aspect of it, whether it came down to the way they presented, whether it came down to the a ridiculous amount of times that they've already presented this presentation. So you guys might be thinking, wow, this is so well rehearsed. That's because it is. Last night at 9 o'clock, they were doing another 9:15 Eastern. They were doing another walkthrough of what they just showed you. They practiced so much, which is why it's so put together and it's amazing. So given that, along the way, there were some very key story things where I would just say, look, guys, you can go, if you go this direction, that's going to be fine. If you go this direction, that's going to be fine. Always err on the side of something that's going to be compelling. There was a juncture where we had maybe like 3 different storylines that we were going to go with. Some were retro based, some were other based, and then they really gravitated towards this. And the winning concept really came together and to see what you did today. So I don't think I ever said like, hey, don't do that. I would be like, if you do that, it's not going to be as compelling as this. And that's really how I tried to frame my feedback. What do we have next? Create a safe, consequence-free environment where you do not assume. Right. So one thing I will just share to industry friends and veterans out there that may be looking to mentor is that like people that are young professionals and myself 10 years ago had no idea what this industry, how this industry even works. Right. So we really need to create comfortable, safe spaces that are consequence-free. It's okay for them to fail, where they have no idea. Everyone can go with the assumption of I have no idea what I'm doing. Maybe I have a few skill sets along the way, but the mentor's there to help create an environment where if you fail or ask stupid questions, it's not a problem at all, and we can get through it together. Which is, I think that these are the professionals would agree that that's the team that we created that. I'm a pretty goofy guy in general, so I may ramble a lot, but I still gave pretty specific, safe feedback. Brooke's nodding feverishly. Yeah. No. What's up next?
No, you gave great feedback the entire process, and I know we're all so thankful for it.
I would stop it. All right. So yes, I mentioned this earlier. We had a very clear purpose. They wanted a portfolio project that would stun industry professionals and their peers and help land them a job, which is fantastic. They all own this work. They can show it if they ever want, and if they had a 5-minute version and they were at a job interview, they can say, hey, this is what I've done as this project team. That is to not say that is what every single portfolio project needs to be. I would say it definitely should adjust based on the skill set and the exposure that people have. Meaning, if you are an industry professional and you've been in the industry for 15 years, you can do a portfolio project. The standards are going to be a lot higher. And I would share that I think people should be doing that if they have free time to do that. But let's say if you're a student and you don't have as much experience as these guys did, they had already done an Imaginations, they had done a project where they had worked as internships, they already had in-studio experience, they've already kind of been there a little bit, right? So they had a lot of exposure to it, so they kind of knew what a studio environment might be like. But there may be people out there, maybe you're a student and you've never had an internship, where you just kind of want to know how does this process even work, And what we mentioned earlier is that there's the TEC workshop series is doing great programming that I helped Morgan with and a bunch of other mentors of a very specific piece. How do you put together an attraction concept in 4 weeks? That's a very aggressive timeline, but it was a very specific way of how do these different skill sets blend together to put a specific thing. And let's see, I've also wrote down here, do you want to harness a specific skill set? Let's just say you have a bunch of concept art. You can go to an industry professional and see if they're willing to give you feedback. I will give people feedback on their writing. I want to be careful what I say because I know there's a lot of people watching, but I'm generally a very giving back kind of guy. And I'm really, if you're doing the legwork, I'll look at your materials and have a discussion with you and tell you, because you guys, people who want to be writers may not even know what that artwork, what that writing looks like, right? So you're there to try to help out. Next slide, what do we have? All right, now this is for me, how to receive mentorship. Most important, and Kyle mentioned this earlier, is being extremely respectful of the mentor's time. And ways that I would do that is have a single point of general contact. So you're not gun shooting out emails all over the place. I know me and Kyle text all the time. I'm shooting him notes at 9 p.m. and all that kind of good stuff. But at least it's a sole source and he's able to wrangle others' availability, which is really important. Also, we stretched this over the course of, since June. So what is that? 5, 6, that's about 3 months, which is a pretty good amount of time to do this. And it was slow and steady. And we weren't trying to do this all in 1 week, right? That's really difficult to do that. And you might not have a compelling piece around that. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. The mentor might have a different style or do something different than you might expect. Ensure you lay out some ground rules. So I mentor in a very specific way, and I've never mentored a team before. You were the first people I've ever mentored, and I had I don't know how I don't know what I know and what you guys may not know, and so I just did my job of trying to make sure you guys are creating the most important, compelling piece. I feel like I generally had a very standoffish approach when it came to giving creative direction. I really wanted you guys to figure that out as much as possible. But somebody else might not have that opinion. You might have an industry veteran that says, hey, I'll be your creative director, and I want this to be a part of my piece. This is going to be my portfolio piece too. And I would consider myself a part of the team in general. But they may have different expectations. So it's ensure you lay out those ground rules of what that mentorship is going to look like. Go ahead, go to the next slide. Don't be afraid to ask as many questions as you want. There is, if you create a safe environment and there is one, you should be able to ask any questions about process, this, that, and the other, and it should work out swimmingly. Do I have another bit?
I think that's it for you, and then I think we just have a few more tips on collaboration, and that's it for the programmed content. I know it's been a lot, but I think that's the last of it, and then we can kind of talk to the viewers because I'm really excited to answer some of the questions.
Cool deal.
Yeah, so just some closing remarks. Basically, whatever Patrick just said, it's really crucial for everyone to take ownership of their roles and tasks, whether it's an art piece or putting together your slides on time. Accountability was a driving factor to ensure the project, moved forward and was cohesive as a whole, and it allowed every team member to stay up to date, with any changes, both on the design front or even scheduling. So yeah.
Right, and don't be precious with your work. So don't be sensitive from getting, critical feedback. Lose your ego, be flexible, open-minded, and understand that critiques help make the project stronger and cohesive.
And to go off the 2 points that Susie and Mark just mentioned, I also really encourage everyone to definitely speak up and really insert yourself into your team conversations, because there is no bad idea. And do not be afraid to articulate what you think or how you feel, right? And also listen to your team's opinions. And also, as Patrick has mentioned, he did such a wonderful job in creating an environment where everyone really feels safe to be able to do that. So for that, I'm really grateful. And I really encourage everyone who's also working on Teams project to do the same for their team as well.
And then play to your strengths. So this is really about knowing what you're good at and knowing how that could fit into a project like this. And another aspect is to really work smarter, not harder. So use the tools you have at your disposal to your advantage. So for example, when I was talking about my rendering, I said that I like to add in little standees for people. So I know exactly how big everyone should be to scale when I pop in those figures. And that is just using technology to my advantage to make a more realistic scene.
And this is just the last one, just saying working with friends can be both professionally and personally rewarding. And what I mean by that is, we all know we're in really challenging times right now. I know I personally, and I think the rest of the team feels this way. I felt like it was so beneficial to work on a project with a group of people that are all going through similar things. Just that collaborative aspect and feeling like you're still involved in something that you're really passionate about, even if you can't do it at an actual, job. It was really helpful. And of course, there was the professional aspect of that, trying to create a portfolio piece that will help us land our next job. But there was also the personal aspect of just spending time with each other. And I think we've all grown closer together as a result of working on this project. So I feel like it was so worthwhile, and I would totally encourage everyone to maybe you're feeling, oh, it's too much work. I don't know, just it's worth it. It's totally worth it. And that's really all I want to say. And yeah, that's really all we have. So with that, I don't know what we're doing now. I think we're just going to have a chat maybe, but thank you all so much for paying attention.
Yeah. Amazing job, guys. And so cool for you to be able to share not just your awesome project, but you're, trying to help others facilitate their own, which is really awesome. And one of the things, back to your formation, I think a lot of people will struggle with that first step. So like, I know you guys kind of have done some of you have done projects before together and kind of had that, initial meeting, but what kind of advice did you suggest for someone who is watching this now or in the future wants to do a project like this? How do they find a team that will bring, unique disciplines and things together? Like how would you recommend starting?
Yeah, I think I can go ahead and answer that. Like you said, we definitely had an advantage because we've been in the industry a little longer. We're past the point of being students. So we've had some opportunities to make connections and make friendships through the work opportunities, the work experiences we've had, and through networking events. But for those of you who are maybe newer, or you just, you don't feel as connected, I would just really encourage you to find some way of getting involved. There's so many ways, especially right now, just virtually. There are so many virtual networking events through the TEA. I think they happen weekly, if I'm not mistaken. If not weekly, it's very frequent. And you may be able to make some connections just through those virtual networking events. You might meet another student that is also interested in potentially working on some sort of project. Another way is just to utilize LinkedIn. I know that
definitely,
like someone recently just posted out of the blue, like, hey, I was wondering if anyone would want to work on a themed entertainment collaborative project together. And that has grown into this huge 30 plus people with tons of mentors thing. One thing that I really love about this industry is how passionate the people are in it. And I think if you just like put it out into the world, someone's going to see it and is going to try and help in whatever way they can. And all you have to do is take that first step and ask.
Okay.
There's like 60 people in that project now, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's like, it's pretty out of control.
And it just shows the need for it in our industry and the amount of people who are out there and want to do this kind of thing. Maybe the talk is you split that 60 group into different groups, trying to manage it. Something that's big can get, out of hand. But I think that's a great idea. And just to shift focus a little bit, I had a personal question about your project that I'm going to be a little selfish and ask. What kind of thoughts did you guys give to explaining the experience? For somebody who goes to the park, sees the cave, doesn't necessarily know where to start. What is the introduction of your attraction to the person? And that could be for anybody.
I think I'll just jump in to start the answer. So the really important part to us was that it started at home. So we were hoping that through starting at home, you could get some of those narrative threads. And the app could even tell you, like, it's kind of a free-form experience. Just whatever you put into it is what you get out of it. And that's how it really impacts your time on the final attraction and impacts your story. It's not like an attraction where the cue's nice and it adds to the theme, but nothing that happens there will really impact your story. And then while you're on the attraction, that's where the actual interaction happens. So that's something that we really wanted to set out to accomplish with this project, is just setting forth the basis for that.
So you're kind of relying on marketing and getting to that guest before they even show up at the park, so that they have a full understanding before they just randomly walk into your cave and have no idea what's going on. Because I feel like there have been a lot of really cool projects out there that just failed on the initial explanation to the guest, and it would have been really cool, but people just walk up to it going, what the heck is this? I have no idea where to begin. So I'm glad you guys thought about that.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting question. Can I also just jump in?
Go ahead.
It's like we definitely wanted to tell a story within our project, but with theme park, it's such a different format than films and writing, because you only have like 5 minutes to communicate a whole story to a guest, instead of like a movie where you have like 2 hours, or even like a novel where you have like a longer engagement window. So for us, we definitely wanted to, like Mark has mentioned in our process before, we really wanted to distill it down to kind of like a concept where it's simple enough, and how to communicate that, like, which is like the race between the 4 elements. That was our concept. Like, you walk in, you see the Olympics torch, you understand right away it's like it's an athletic event, and you see the 4 different elements kind of visually represented, and that's all you needed to know to enjoy the attraction. And then, if you wanted to dive deeper into the narrative and the lore of this world, you can also do that, and there will still be new things for you to discover. And that's kind of the goal we were trying to achieve with this project, is to kind of design for people who go to the park like once in a lifetime, and they walk in and they understand it right away, and people who go to the parks for the 100th time and they still discover new things to dazzle them.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. Thank you. So I think I actually have a previous engagement that I have to hop off for, but I'm going to throw it to Kelly. I'm sorry, guys. Bye. I love you all.
Thanks, Dave.
It was amazing.
Hi, thank you for everything.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw it to Kelly to answer some of our viewer comments and questions. So take it away.
Yay! There's so many. Okay, Mallory. Hi, Mallory. Beautiful concept. I'm really drawn to the magical nature of the story. I'm curious if you considered any guest interactivity that is without the iPhone. Like, what types of gameplay and interactive involvement can a guest have if perhaps they don't have a smartphone available to them?
Yeah, I can answer that that question, actually. So one of the things that we really wanted the guest to experience is the immersive environment, right? So we definitely were embracing the phone, but also at the same time, we don't want to repeat kind of like like the setbacks that have been made in the past, which is the guests just kind of like go into their own bubble and be on their phone. So we wanted to use the phone as a tool for the guests to connect with the immersive, expensive show sets that is around them. So like the UI on the phone is very simple, and even if you don't have a phone, we definitely will have like cast members with like very simple consoles, or like we can also install stations with joysticks, because the controls are very simple and are just meant to engage the guests with the gameplays. So all of those can definitely be resolved without the guests having a smartphone with them.
Awesome. And then Marie had a question a little bit later, like, is there a place for guests to recharge? Like, if their battery dies, is there any way?
Absolutely, and that's something we thought about from the beginning. It's difficult because there's so many parts of this project. I feel like this could be a 10-hour presentation. But something we were definitely thinking about is, at the very least, having charging stations all throughout the queue. And it could just be to manifest as something as simple as like what they have by the Tangled bathrooms in the Magic Kingdom, having those little themed elements that you can then plug your phone into. But also wireless charging is becoming such a huge thing right now. And I'm pretty sure in the next 2 years, all phones will be able to be wirelessly charged. So incorporating those into the interior spaces as well.
Oh, that's so smart. And then you mentioned that there was, this could be a 10-hour thing. It's so amazingly put together. What made you decide, though, to limit it to, I'm sorry. Well, what made you decide to limit it to one, like, experience instead of doing the whole park? Or is that, like, for the future?
Yeah, I can take that question. Okay. So the project, it's like one of those projects where the project found itself as we went along with the parameters and the problems we set out to answer under Patrick's guidance. So we wanted to design, just to solve the problems that we identified in the park, which is the long queue, and like the dead zones that needed to be utilized. So we wanted the solution to also be applicable to regional parks. So ultimately, we kind of like like we had an idea where like we had all those ideas where it's like, oh, like what if we do this type of attraction where like the guests like use their phone and play with like all of the interactives in the queue, and that ultimately like became a conversation of like, what if like what you do like on your phone actually influence what you like, the experience you get, and that ultimately kind of led way to the idea that we have today. So yeah, I hope that answers your questions.
Oh yeah. And then Cynthia Sharp has requested a water otter be delivered to her post haste. I also mirror this. It's so freaking adorable. And a comment like this has been just an amazing display. It's something that everyone in our industry should be looking at, and you guys are putting, gosh, it's just amazing. Mallory had another question as well, and she's like, amazing questions. Were there any specific points during this process where the team disagreed on how to progress? And Patrick, how did you help them overcome these complications to become better collaborators and team members? How did you feel that you overcame internal disagreements individually or as a group?
I think that we really fostered as a group a really collaborative environment. So any idea that someone came up with, no one said no. And we all kind of talked about the pros and cons of each idea. So going back how I talked about the 3 attraction styles we were looking at, and we were trying to figure out what exactly this attraction is going to be. We had ideas for each of those styles, and we really actually listed out the pros and cons. And that's kind of how we came to an agreement. And that's really how we worked as a group in general. So there really wasn't anything where one person said, I feel so strongly about this, and everyone else said, no, you're wrong, because we all kind of tried to understand the entire scope of what we were looking at and try to think about it very logically and moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm also definitely grateful for, as I've mentioned, like Patrick and just everyone on the team kind of creating a very safe environment where I felt like I could share, even when I make a sketch and and it's like 3 a.m. and I'm like, guys, like it's not good. It's not going anywhere. I'm sleepy. They'll be like, okay, what are you intending to go with this? And they would actually try to understand what I'm going for and trying to understand the intention of the piece, and then maybe offer their feedback where appropriate. And for me, I felt also really safe to kind of take those feedback wherever I saw fit, and kind of adapt that to the work that I was doing. And I'm sure that also applies to everyone. Like we've all had moments where we were like, guys, help, please, now. And we would all be like, yeah, like, sure, what's up? Let's talk. So that was a really nice atmosphere to have within the team.
So, and what I would say is in regards to trying to resolve disagreements, there were major points where we would have, they would present 3 different ideas and we would discuss them, and they laid out the consequences and the pros and cons. So it was very easy for us to just have a discussion with everybody. What I would recommend doing for mentors is to ensure you're hearing everyone's voice, and meaning I specifically called people out and said, hey, what do you think about this? I know you haven't said anything, what are you thinking? What's your opinion on this? And ensuring you kind of get everyone's opinion. And there were only a few times when they kind of came and maybe it was a little bit like, we're not really sure. Usually they were pretty put together with it. But ensuring that you're asking people's voices and hearing them, and then you put that filter on, okay, what's going to make the best creative project that would wow me as somebody that would want to present it or see it. That's what the filter was. But overall, I'd say I've so far in my mentor projects have not been exposed to mass clashes and things like that, but I do know it happens. And at that point, you need to step in and make a creative decision. Say, hey, you know what, this is really what you should do. And this is how you should resolve it. I never came to that, but in other projects, I have kind of had to step in a little bit and say, I really think you should just do this and combine these ideas, and then you're good to go. So that would be my response to that.
So, given the scope of this project, how did you define those different stages? And what point did you just wash your hands and be like, we have to move on, we're done with this?
So there's a very simple answer to this, and that it's never done. But you have to get it to a point where you really feel like you got your point across. So it's really important to us to take a step back and to see, are we saying what we want to say in a clear and as concise as possible way? So that was really important for us during our process.
Right, because also to add to that, sometimes when we were going through our things, we did get stuck on some things. Like maybe very little disagreements we had that I personally had was like, oh, the overusage of phones. But of course, like listing out the pros and cons, and also with this one of the feedbacks that we got, you know, not everyone would have a phone. Not everyone wants to be on the phone. We just want a break. But, you know, it is a very useful tool, though. So that's where we just had to go with it. And then, but on times where we did feel stuck on like a certain piece that we were mainly in charge of, you know, we brought it to the group and be like, hey, I need feedback. Something's not working. You know, you have to be willing to be, to like get the critique so that you know how to move on. Because some people will not know, wonder why. You yourself, you know, we are our own worst critics sometimes. You just want to be done with it. But no, like in a very safe environment with your group of friends too, you know, they can provide a lot of help.
That's really great. Jojo had a question, and I love this question. She says, what are some examples of narrative tools or language like the story beats that the industry use that can be applied to a personal portfolio to ensure that you're like creating a compelling, clear story?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. My advice to you is to look at attractions that you think are most successful and really analyze them and see which. Can you throw the question up again, just so I can see it? I want to make sure I actually answer it. Digesting what are the story beats for your favorite attraction. So let's say your favorite attraction is Tower of Terror. So the first story beat is you're approaching and you see this gigantic building. You go to the queue, that's another story beat. You go into the elevator or the lobby area, that's a story beat of what's going on there. You go into the library, that's a story beat. Then you go on the actual ride, and you could start dissecting what is it about that your favorite ride that you love and that you're interested in, and how a part of the story are you. And so if you're talking about specifically writing tools and that, Kelly, please don't do that. Kelly's like over here, like jumping over. You know, you can outline out your favorite attractions and say what's it about this that's interesting. My suggestion is that you want to have an experience that has highs, lows, that compresses, has small moments, big moments, and specifically. When you do that, you can start to see what attractions are not successful. Do you hate an attraction? Try to figure out why you don't like that attraction, because it's good. It's one thing to say that XYZ attraction isn't good, but if you can define and articulate why you don't like it and why you think it did not work, then you're actually starting to become a theme park designer, and you can implement that into your own work. So there isn't any specific tips and tricks. It's just research, experiencing things, and looking at very specific critical things. Unfortunately, in this industry, people are not very public about criticisms about other people's work, because we're all working with our friends. So we would never say this attraction is terrible in a public setting. We would never do that. I would never do that. I would never say why, spell that out. So talk amongst your friends, get a group together and start figuring that out. And I think that'll be very valuable. When I'm going through an experience and something feels off, I try to figure that out while I'm on it and say, why am I not liking this? Or why is this not working for me? And it's about years of experience in doing that.
That's awesome. Oh, and Ella, do y'all have any thoughts or advice on doubling up on roles? Like all those hats we wear. It can be difficult with the take ownership of your role idea and matching styles. And she's saying that it's certainly a real thing that happens. So where did y'all have to double up?
I mean, that definitely did happen for us. Obviously, like I was doing graphic design, I was also doing coordination. And I would also say, I think Triet really doubled up, because not only was he doing the UI UX, but he also did a lot of the writing for our project. That was a very collaborative process, but he definitely kind of took charge and helped with that. So I'm not sure if I have any like tips per se, but like it definitely, as you said, it is a thing that happens sometimes, is, you don't have a team where every single skill set is there. So I think partially it was also developing a project where we knew that we were, delivering something that was within our skill sets and played to our strengths, because we wanted something that really was strong as a portfolio piece.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, don't feel afraid to reach out for help. If you're drowning in storyboards, get someone else to help you, and really collaborate with the team members you're with.
And just to kind of add to that, like there's no one way to tell a story. Like really, like you can do it with art, you can do it with stock images, you can do it with like the internet is is kind of like a wonderful thing for you to also kind of take advantage of, right? So like there's really no one good way to tell the story. And I guess like my point for that is that really be honest with your team of what you can or cannot do, and how much you can contribute, and within the team kind of try to create a space where you can be honest about that and say, guys, I'm doing way too much here, so like how can we resolve this? Like, should we try to find a different way to convey this message? So yeah, so I guess like that's just kind of like my own personal experience in working on creative presentations where you're trying to kind of convey an idea in different ways.
And some key technical key tips that I have as a creative and as an artist, definitely keep a mood board and put all of the artwork that you have, just put it together. Because when I was working on Pandora, I had everything I worked on 3 different monitors, just so it is continuously consistent. So I'm always reminded of what certain details and assets need to be combined and everything too, because that way you can see the whole cohesive story. You're creating the timeline of your designs.
This question was specific about having multiple writers or concept illustrators on a single team. I'm happy to address that. So with writing, it's actually not too crazy, which is to say you might divide and conquer up and give each other feedback on their specific section. And it's actually pretty great when you have a writing partner to do that. I co-wrote a book, and so we would read each other's materials, we'd give feedback on each other's, and you do that. That's actually having 2 writers on a project isn't crazy. It's just you're giving feedback to one another and trying to get the same voice all together and making sure it matches up. In regards to concept illustrators and artists on a team, you can kind of see how they divided things up here, which is to say that some people took character designs, then they even took 3D modeling from one person, and then they put layers on to make sure it was very consistent. That's a very specific way of handling things, which is to say, okay, we're going to have one person do the inking, and then another person's going to put another layer onto it, and then another person's going to do another layer onto it, which makes everything look pretty consistent. Do you guys have any more comments about that, now that I kind of framed that question a little bit different, in regards to how you kind of collaborated with Susie doing one thing, Mark doing another thing, Brooke doing another thing for art?
I think you hit the nail on the head really well. And Susie, having a mood board so we know exactly what tree we're referencing, what's the style we're referencing, even the colors we're referencing. So I think that really helped.
Cool.
All right, I have another question. What were some of the biggest challenges or lessons learned that you faced during this project?
I could take that question. So one of the biggest challenges for this team, I guess, was moi, because I lived on the other side of the world. So I felt really bad whenever we had to schedule a team meeting, and everyone is like, okay, so what time works for everyone? And everyone's like, this time, this time, this time. And I'm like, I need to sleep, and also I have a job. So it was definitely one of the biggest challenges, is to kind of find the right time that works, because all of us are on different time zones. And so I guess props to Kyle for and Patrick for organizing all of that. So it's definitely one of the biggest challenges, and I think it's also common in the industry, with all of us being on different time zones. So it was definitely a great learning experience to to learn how to work smart, and like be the most efficient in terms of like getting our progress, like getting the project moving forward. We would have meetings as kind of like a check-in point. So like whenever we're not doing meetings, we will be off kind of like doing like the work that we have assigned to each and everyone, and then during the meetings we would kind of regroup and then give each other's critiques, and then again like branch off from there. So it was a very fluid system that we kind of had set up. So that also really helped, and it was also a great learning experience to also kind of have that as a challenge, and like overcoming that as a team. So I'm very grateful for all these people, and I know I've said that many times throughout this this session, but seriously, like you guys, mwah, mwah.
Yeah, and I just want to say major props to Triet for making the sacrifice for his sleep at so many times, because I know like sometimes he has to get up really early, but he's in meetings until 1, 2 a.m. So really appreciate that. And to be honest, that is a reality in this industry. That's something that I experienced when I was interning at Universal Creative. We had meetings with people in Beijing. So we had to plan our day around meeting with those people. We would have to get in really early, get those meetings out of the way, because it was, like evening time for them and in the morning for us. And that's just a reality. So it's something it's just part of it. And it's something that we made work. And yeah.
Yeah, and something that we had to be mindful of, and that was somewhat challenging, especially during these times, we had to be careful to not be burnt out, from all the external news and, other social media things that can be distracting. Just be mindful of each other. Like, hey, we're going through something rough, maybe something, we feel a little burnt out, or like physically, like my hand hurts or something, I'm clicking too much and kind of stuff. Just creatively and mentally, just we had to express like knowing when we should be taking a break too, so we can do our best and give it all for our project, because it really reflects in your work, depending what mood you're in.
Yeah, and just to build off that, I think all the meetings we had always an agenda. We didn't meet for the sake of meeting, which helped us, not burn out and all that. We always had a clear goal. We caught up because we're friends and all that, but still we knew when to stop and get right to work. Because if we don't do that, the conversation is going to go on for 2-3 hours, and we would have got nothing done.
Oh man. Okay, Emily Lee, love you so much. Do you have advice on reaching out to industry professionals who you admire and would love to foster a mentee or relationship with without embarrassing yourself or come off as disingenuous? Oh, good question. Who wants to take that?
Should I?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, well, no, feel free. Kyle, no, go ahead.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear your perspective.
I don't know. That's definitely something that I myself have struggled with. Networking is tough for me because I never want to come across as like I'm only trying to form a relationship to get something from another person. But I've realized that a better way of going about it, and it's really just realizing that the people that you reach out to, reach out to them because you want to learn something from them, and you feel like they could help you not only professionally in terms of like landing jobs, but also in terms of their guidance and the wisdom that they have as someone who has been in this industry longer. And of course, this kind of goes without saying, but don't ever reach out to someone and just say like, "Hi, can you give me a job?" Like, don't go about it that way. That never works. It's not a good look. But if you just reach out to someone that you respect and say like, "Hey, I really admire the work you've done. Here are the reasons, and I would really appreciate if you had the time to share wisdom," or kind of leave it open-ended so that they can engage as much or as little as they feel comfortable with their current bandwidth or whatever they're going through right now. I personally have found that most of the people I have reached out to in themed entertainment are more than happy to offer some sort of insight or help or meet and greet or whatever it is. It's such a welcoming industry. So definitely I know it's stressful, but do it anyway. It's worth it.
And you miss 100% of the shots.
Your research.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So literally the worst case scenario is the industry professional doesn't respond to you, and that would be okay. But at least reach out and say, I really admire you and I want to learn something from you. And just in my experience, people have been really, really receptive to that.
So I'll answer that question as somebody who's in the, working and such. But first, before we do that, if there are any final questions you guys have, we're going to go for like another 9 minutes or so, but feel free to shoot them in and we're going to try to wrap it through as many as we can. Yeah, this is always the $1 million question. My suggestion to people is that if there's somebody you admire, you should be already trying to bring value to them. And there's a number of ways you can do that. On LinkedIn specifically. If they share content on LinkedIn, share their content, comment on it, look like you're engaged, look like you care about it, and you just start with a very preliminary thing of like, hey, I just would love to chat with you one day, and see what they say. I would recommend, there are a lot of people right now that are open to work, and they show it very clearly on LinkedIn, and already you know that they might have time on their hands to help with side projects. And so I would recommend targeting people that have a lot of experience, but due to COVID-19 might be more available to do something like that, or to at least do it. Saying I want to start a mentor-mentee relationship, I look at it of specifically of mentoring a specific project. And if you show up and you're responsive and you're respectful of their time, and you come to them saying, hey, I kind of got a group of 5 people, we'd love to be mentored by you. This is kind of what we're thinking. And you present that. Every single person I've talked to has been willing to do something like that. And they're like, hey, let's sign me up. And then of course I lived in 12 people to do that recently. So it's like, there are a lot of people out there that are willing to do it. And so it's just that first thing, just like Brooke was saying, if you don't shoot the ball, you can't make it in the basket. Period.
So now, what would you tell anyone who comes up with further questions for you after this show? What should they do?
Reach out.
Reach out, yeah. Please reach out.
We're nice people. We're not gonna bite.
We would absolutely love to talk to you. Seriously. Whether it's about this project or if it's just maybe you had questions on something we talked about when we were introducing ourselves, or you just need a friend. Whatever it is, reach out. We're very nice and we would love to make a connection with you.
Yeah, even if you live on the other side of the world and, you just, keeps everyone up at in the middle of the night because it's your daytime. Like, these people, they tolerate that, and they are very nice people for tolerating that. So that's evidence that they're nice people. So please reach out, because we would love to make friends with everyone in the industry.
Yeah, and the how to reach out, I think if you're watching this on YouTube, in the what is it, the description of the video, there are links to our LinkedIn and our personal websites. And also on the screen right now, you can also see our websites, which I think will have our contact info there as well.
Screen grab. Oh, man. There was on Facebook Live, in the description there too. I think we've linked your LinkedIn and info. Gosh, guys, this was so great. Oh, Marie, I really like the idea of getting points and engagement by using your phone in the queue or buying drinks. Are there ways that guests could get points without these in the gameplay?
Absolutely.
Sorry.
So a huge part was training your pet, and those are in the elemental lounges and also at home. So you can just sit on your phone at home playing these endless games and leveling up your pet, and then that'll make your pet stronger in the final attraction. And also with the buying merchandise idea, we thought that wasn't only specifically in the queue, but that was also park-wide. So if you're in the park and you're having a meal, you could scan that in. If you're in the park and just you want to buy a t-shirt, you could scan that in. So it's literally everything and literally endless. And I don't know if Triet wants to talk a little bit more about the UX UI aspect of that.
That was spot on. that was spot on. I'm good.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so great. I don't know if people have just been so blown away, but I don't see any more audience questions. I know I have a ton, but I think I'm gonna wait because we only have a couple more minutes, and I'm just gonna email you guys or something individually. Because I could talk for hours about what we just witnessed. Oh, good. What's the best way to publicize your project once you're done? Like, how do you get the word out?
Social media.
Yeah, I was going to say social media, but present it in a way that, as a layman, you can really digest every single part of it. Don't just like have bits and pieces on like different parts of your website. Really make it cohesive, kind of like how we laid out our presentation. So you can see, where we started, the intent, and, what was that payoff at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that LinkedIn is a huge resource of where you can share work as you go. And we publish, and obviously not everybody has their own television show or live stream to go on, but have it host if anybody has interesting content and they want to go on my live stream and share a project. The STEP project, they did a great job doing a YouTube gala this past weekend, which was fantastic. Great way to share your work. Really, it's the power of social media. And if you have a mentor, just like I did, I reached out to industry people I knew and said, "Hey, you got to see this cool project," and that's a pretty important connection right there. Cool.
Oh, good. For mentors, how would you recommend finding groups like this to help? They're out there. There are tons of people.
Yeah, if you were to post on LinkedIn right now, I'm willing to mentor a group of students, you would get responses within 10 minutes. So you use LinkedIn, things like that. That's really that's the answer. It's not too complicated. That's the answer is, hey, I'm looking to mentor a group of young professionals. Boom, it will light up like a Christmas tree. And you're happy to connect with me on LinkedIn and share. And I'm also happy to talk to anybody that's watching that's an interesting professional that is looking into mentorship. Shoot me a note, and I'm happy to talk further about it and give you more behind the scenes information.
You guys are awesome. And for mentors, how do you provide mentorship for this broad array of disciplines? Because and it's not just this. Like, there's engineers out there that want mentoring too.
This is a very specific and interesting thing that kind of came up during the TEC workshop series that we did, which was to say we had 8 different mentors, and we all had different skill sets that we came to the table with. Like a Morgan came with beautiful concept art background, art direction. I came with story development and fabrication art direction. You have the Dave Cobbs, the writer, and other amazing skill sets. And so, it can be challenging to be a one-person show. And so my recommendation is to be specific with what you think your wheelhouse is. And so there were times in this project where I said, I'm not really a concept art director, but I'm going to tell you this, and this is what I would do about that. And I would, looking back, like I probably could have looped in there's something that I really thought was struggling, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I could have brought in somebody to get feedback on it, and which we actually did. We did bring in other people into the project, which is a good way of handling that.
That's so smart. Oh, Marcus, what a beautiful, tangible example of how people can come together during weird times and create something outstanding out of work hours. Thank y'all for sharing your work and your process.
Aw, that's so
Thanks,
Thank you all for
Marcus.
watching.
Thank you, Marcus.
So I think there's like one last question I'd love that we can close with. How's that sound, Kelly?
So now, yes, it's perfect. What do each of you have planned now that you're done with this project? Kyle.
Each of us? Okay.
Yeah, we'll go down the list and then we'll wrap up the show.
All right.
30 seconds.
Well, okay. I'm also involved in that project I mentioned earlier that has grown into, I guess, 60 plus people now. It's called the Imagiathon. So I'll be working on that. I will be continuing to apply for jobs, and that's about it.
I'll be taking a little mental break so I can spend more time with these babies. And definitely, I would love to keep collaborating with other people just so I can, continuously stay creative and stuff. But like Kyle, I'll definitely keep searching on what I want to be doing next and continue to experiment and keep talking with other people who do, other types of art as well.
Triet?
Hi. So I'm just focused on my current job right now, but obviously I'm always gonna be looking forward to the future, and especially when kind of the industry starts to open again. I would love to explore where I can go, maybe going back to the US to kind of be closer to the industry, or wherever the next chapter might take me. So yeah.
So I'm going to be working on the Imagithon with Kyle as well, and just freelancing here and there with some clients.
And Brooke.
And then I'm going to also be working on the Imagithon with Mark and Kyle. And then I'm just going to be looking for the next step in my career. And I really think that this project isn't over, so that's probably also going to take up some time.
And I'm working on the Imagithon with Kyle, Mark, and Brooke. It's so exciting. Awesome.
Right. I got 50 side projects going on too. Great. Well, that was a great show. Thanks, team, for coming on. Kelly, actually, you should close the show.
Okay. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate everybody sharing your expertise with us and just really kind of inspiring us all to do the absolute most. Yeah, woo, Imagithon. I can't wait to see what y'all do next. I'm super excited, and thank all of our viewers and people who send in the best questions ever. Love y'all, and see y'all in a couple of weeks. It's gonna be exciting.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you so